First, I predicted their wins. Now we're talking about individual performances, stat rankings, and what the numbers will show come the end of November. I hit two of last year's hot takes after Alvano drained a 55-yard field goal and the defense dominated on their way to a top 15 ranking, but I was a little off on the other six. Today I came up with 8 more, all reasonable but require elite execution, and if the team hits 50% of them, we're going to be feeling pretty damn good about Matt Rule in year 2. I kept it conservative these last few months, and I didn't hype this team up too much, but now we're only 2 weeks away. So today, I'm giving you my 8 bold predictions for Nebraska this season, and we'll rank the toughest and easiest games on this schedule. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss next week's show with Adam Carricker. And if you're going to a game in Lincoln this season, hit the like button and help us hit 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
He's hit and he's taking a shot downfield, wide open end zone, caught, touchdown.
After I released my record prediction, I saw a lot of comments telling me I'm crazy for thinking that Nebraska is going to lose to Purdue, and it almost felt like they forgot that Purdue was on a 4-1 run before they lost Braum last season. They've been a tough team to beat, but it did make me think. Am I giving that team too much credit, or do they deserve more respect than they're getting? Now, normally I just go and check on the line to see what Vegas thought, but it's too early for that. So then I decided to go look at ESPN's FPI model, and I found out that it was correct 74% of the time last season. And since they've already got their predictions up for every game this year, I decided we should rank the teams on the schedule based on FPI's confidence that Nebraska is going to pull off the win. So I'm going to list every team starting with FPI's highest percentage chance to win, going all the way down to the lowest. And this obviously changes week to week and as teams develop or prove themselves, but it gives us a really good starting point. At the top, it's Northern Iowa with an 88.3% chance to win that week. UTEP's at 86.1%, Indiana 62.2%, which is surprisingly high since it's a road game. Illinois isn't listed yet, but I'm going to guess when it does go up there, it'll be somewhere around 58%. Rutgers, a team a lot of people are worried about, is a 57.2% chance of victory. UCLA, another home game, is 54.8%. And Purdue, the worst team in the Big Ten, at least by preseason standards, is at 54.1%. And even crazier, FPI thinks it's just as likely Nebraska beats Wisconsin this season because they gave them the exact same percentage. Colorado's damn near a coin flip at 51.9%, and that caps off the 9 projected victories by FPI. Nebraska's got a 40.2% chance to beat Iowa, 26.4% on the road against USC, and almost no shot at upsetting Ohio State with only 8.6%. But think about that. The model thinks Nebraska is more likely to beat Wisconsin and Rutgers than they are Colorado. It thinks a road game at Purdue's a tougher matchup than going to Indiana or hosting UCLA. Now, none of this means anything since they change every week, but it's all worth taking into account when you consider which games will be the biggest sweat. Before I get into my bold predictions, I want to shout out the Carricker Chronicles for sponsoring today's show. And I think I mentioned it earlier, but Adam's joining me here next week before he gets back to his regular posting schedule for this season. And I'm always around for predictions and reactions, but if you want former player insight from one of the most connected guys out there, make sure you're subscribed to the Carricker Chronicles YouTube channel and keep up with all the content he's posting over on CarrickerChronicles.com. Let's define a bold prediction because I don't want to set unrealistic expectations. These picks are going to be long shots. There's a chance they hit, and 2 of them did last season, but they require execution at the highest level, and that's something we haven't seen from a Nebraska team at a consistent rate in a really long time. I'm going to list 8, but I had more, so drop yours in the comment section below, and I'll react to some in my next video. First is Dylan Raiola to finish as a top 35 passer nationally. And the anti-Dylan argument that I keep hearing from other fan bases is that Nebraska's too excited about a true freshman QB and that he's bound to struggle. But we know that's a BS argument. Go back to 2018 with Adrian Martinez and Scott Frost's first season. He was coming off of an injury that held him out of his senior year of high school. The entire offense was taking on a new identity, and even though he was a highly recruited player, he didn't have the natural arm talent that Raiola does. Despite all of that, Adrian finished the season with 2,600 yards passing, which was a school record by a freshman, and he ended that season as a legit Heisman contender going into 2019. So, what would it take to rank inside the top 35 this year? Well, if you look back to last season, Michael Penix finished number one with 4,900 yards, but at number 35, Mikey Keene only had 2,976. So, let's say Dylan needs to hit 3,000. That's only 250 yards a game. Tommy Armstrong did it back in 2015, and Tanner Lee went over 3,100 in 2017. It's a bold prediction by Nebraska standards since it's rare. He's a true freshman, and only 4 players in school history have gone for over 3,000. But if this offense is actually ready to take the next step, this should be a lock to hit. Number 2 is for the defense to force 20 plus turnovers. And that might sound like a lot, but there were 44 teams who pulled this off last season. Nebraska finished with 14, but Colorado had 20, Northwestern had 22, and Maryland had 24. The Big Ten West games always felt like a battle of keep away. Teams were so bad on offense that they just tried to hold onto the ball, run downhill, and chew clock. But the new teams on this schedule won't play that way. Colorado, Indiana, Ohio State, UCLA, USC, they're all teams who like to throw it. So having more opportunity means they should have more success, at least in terms of interceptions. In 2023, the Blackshirts recovered 5 fumbles and picked off 9 passes, but the pass rush is going to be even better in year 2. More Big Ten down linemen, fast edge rushers with proven ability to get to the QB, and more emphasis on takeaways means they could double that fumble count. The turnover margin was minus 17 last year, so if they can cut back 50% on their 31 losses and force just 6 more, that would put the team close to even and rank in the top 70 nationally. Sticking with the defense, I'm going with Jamari Butler to have 7 or more sacks. He had 5.5 last year, tying Garrett Nelson's output in 2022, but since 2014, only Randy Gregory and Khalil Davis pulled off 7 or 8. Around the country, 47 players recorded at least 7 in 2023, and Purdue had 2 of them on their team. I was listening to Ndamukong Suh talk about what made him such a beast his final season, and he gave a lot of credit to Jared Crick and Barry Turner because without them taking up space, he wouldn't have had the same opportunities to get through and make a play. Nebraska's got 2 huge bodies in Hutmaker and Robinson who demand attention. The blitzing linebackers create confusion, and now that Butler's experienced in his role and at his peak physically, I think it's fair to expect a boost in his overall production. It's been 5 years since Khalil Davis was able to hit 8, but if there was ever a Nebraska defense to put up serious numbers, this one's the one. Number 4 is that we'll see a kick or a punt return for a touchdown, and these are game changers. I saw a stat that said teams with a return TD win the game over 70% of the time, and in Nebraska's case, it's been way higher than that. Just look at the last 7 times it happened. DeMornay Pearsonell had 3 back in 2014. JD Spielman had 2 when Frost first took over, and these past 2 seasons, we saw blocks get returned all the way. Nebraska went 6-1 in those games. But ever since JD left, Nebraska hasn't been consistent with big returns. They've had speed, but it's just been a struggle to break free. Rule knows that has to change. They need better field position. The offense gets a ton of momentum, especially at home, when they start off closer to the 50. Ed Foley's got options now that the receiver and running back rooms are so deep. IGC and Ja'Cory Barney are expected to be 2 of their top guys. Ramirez returned kicks in the past, but with his injury history, I'm not sure they'd put him out there over Emmett Johnson. Tommy Hill's worked out as a punt returner, but it doesn't matter who's back there. Nebraska's athletes are all bigger and faster now that they're in year 2 of Rule Strength program. Because there hasn't been a return against a Power 5 team since Iowa in 2014, this one's extremely bold, but it's definitely possible. Next is Isaiah Nayor to go over 10 total touchdowns, and this one won't be easy. Only 4 Nebraska receivers have scored at least 10 in a single season. Johnny Rogers, Maurice Purify, Quincy Enunwa, and Stanley Morgan Jr. Trey Palmer almost did it a couple years ago, but Casey Thompson missing a few games really killed his chances, and he ended up with 9. To put into context how tough this really is, only 25 receivers did it last season, and only 2 of those played in the Big Ten. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Roman Wilson. At first, I thought it would be harder to accomplish this with such a deep skill group, but then I looked back to Enunwa's 2013 season. He went for 12 touchdowns and 753 yards with Kenny Bell, Jordan Westerkamp, Amir Abdullah, and Jamal Turner all in that top group with him. Now, Nayor is expected to be the most valuable receiver on this team, and most people think he'll end up as Raiola's top target. So if all of that is true, I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar stat line to what he had in 2021 at Wyoming. 56 touches for 901 yards and 13 TDs. Number 6 is that we'll see 2 freshman All-Americans from this class. In Frost's first year, Adrian Martinez made the list. Then in 2019, it was Wan'Dale Robinson who went for almost 800 yards and 5 TDs. Last season, Cam Lenhart started 4 games and recorded 3 sacks to earn his way into an honorable mention slot, and Prince Will ended up on the second team after he finished with 22 tackles. But honorable mention doesn't count here, so we need to see 2 guys have breakout seasons, and there are a few who could get it done. Dillon's the obvious name since he's expected to be a top 7 QB in the entire conference and potentially play his way into multiple awards during his time in Lincoln. At receiver, you've got Ja'Cory Barney, who should get worked in early and often, and Carter Nelson, who's one of the best pound-for-pound athletes on the entire team. Vincent Shavers constantly gets brought up as a linebacker to watch for, and nobody expects him to redshirt. So there's hope that the defense repeats with another true freshman making his presence known right out the gate. I'd be surprised if any other true freshman played enough to compete for a spot, but anything can happen when you play a long season. This one's going to be tough, but it would do wonders for recruiting. 7 is to finish the season undefeated at home. Since 2001, when an Eric Crouch-led team played for the national championship, Nebraska's only pulled this off twice. Back in 2012, Taylor Martinez dominated with almost 4,000 yards and helped that team finish off Wisconsin, Michigan, and Penn State to end the season undefeated in Lincoln. In 2016, the schedule wasn't as tough, and after Tommy Armstrong willed his way to a win over number 22 Oregon, Nebraska beat up on Illinois, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland to lock in a 7-0 run at Memorial Stadium. This year's going to be similar. Colorado and Wisconsin are both tough matchups and teams who Nebraska has struggled against in the past, but even with those 2 games, they should be the favorite at home all 7 weeks. A winning team means a successful recruiting team. David Sanders is committed to Tennessee for now, but what happens if he sees Lincoln at its peak? Same goes for Michael Terry. Undefeated at home means better visits for recruits, more excitement for the fan base, and a higher rating in the polls. So if there's one goal on this list that I'm really hoping hits, this would have to be the one. And last is to finish the season ranked inside the top 25. I think if they end up in the top 25, it'll be closer to that 22 range, but we'll talk about ranked for now. It's something that hasn't happened since Bo Pelini's 2011 team went 10-2 in the regular season before dropping the final 2 games to rank 25th in the final AP poll. This year's preseason poll features Ohio State at number 2, USC at 23, and Iowa at 25. These other 3 aren't on Nebraska's schedule, but Oregon's at 3, Penn State's at 8, and Michigan's number 9. The Big Ten's going to be brutal. Drop a game and you can slide down the list pretty quick, but pull off an upset and you're making a name for yourself overnight. Nebraska's in a great position to get into the poll early. They start off in the 35th slot, and Colorado's just a few spots back at number 42. Beat UTEP, Colorado, and Northern Iowa those first 3 weeks, and the home game against Illinois on a Friday night should be enough to push them into the rankings before the end of September. Rule talks about how he doesn't want that. They want to feel like they're underdogs because shit gets harder when you've got a target on your back. But that's not how this game works. When you recruit and develop at a high level, national recognition comes with the territory. The brand and the fans love him for it, but hopefully the players can handle the pressure because I know one thing's for sure, most of the guys on this team have no idea what it feels like to be part of the most feared team on the field. These were the first 8 I could think of, but there are plenty more that might feel like a reach, even though there's a good chance they'd come true. And since we're only 2 weeks out from UTEP, let me know some of your bold predictions so I can ask some other Nebraska show hosts what they think's most likely to happen. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. If Nebraska did finish off perfect in Lincoln, how many total wins would they have on the season? Is the special teams return game ready to make a move, or will they continue to struggle as much as the kicking game has? And how do you feel about Jamari Butler in his 2nd season as a starter? Can he be one of the most dominant guys on that side of the ball, or are Nash and Ty going to make a jump and overshadow him? I don't really care who the stars are. I just hope somebody can be the face that we all point to as this team's Randy Gregory or Levante David. But that's all I've got for today. So until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.